welcome back. Alright everybody, welcome and thank you for joining us. We are Twin Cities Carry and this is the Twin Cities Carry live show. We are a firearms training company based in Minnesota. We do permit to carry, basic firearms training, DNR hunters education, advanced carry courses, and much more. Joining me tonight, as always, is Jim and AJ. Hey guys. Tonight we're going to be talking about Jack Wilson, no charges, McCloskeys, charges, ammunition prices. Do you really need that, kidney? I mean, you got to. And we're going to be talking about what we ourselves do to practice both on and off the range, especially during the great ammo shortage of 2020. All right. Jumping into it, it's been a couple weeks. Hopefully the audio's coming through well for everybody. So, Jack Wilson. I think we're very familiar with Jack Wilson and what happened. For those of you who may not be, you'll want to look up White Settlement Church shooting. If you don't know who I'm talking about, find the video. It is hugely important you understand how fast things happened. I'm pretty sure we have a breakdown of it on our YouTube page, so check that out. Jim, you're pretty familiar. You want to give a quick synopsis of the shooting?
Well, yeah, I mean, just from the idea of, you know, we all talk about continuing your training and things like that, and some of it doesn't have to be paid for. I got a lot out of just watching that video for a couple hours each night for a couple of nights, just watching all of the different characters. But the whole idea was a bad guy walked into a church, took a couple of shots, and then a good guy, Jack Wilson, from about 50 feet away, was able to take him out. And like you say, it was just incredibly fast. The third shot, which was Jack Wilson's shot, was literally in time with the first two that the bad guy had taken. So it almost sounded like they had been from the same gun. But I mean, a matter of 2 seconds, and all the shooting was over. But you know, the knowledge that can be gleaned from watching it is pretty incredible. But you know, I've seen videos of a lot of shootings. I've read stories about a lot of them. This is darn near the cleanest, most absolutely clear-cut case of defensive shooting I've ever seen, and it still went to the grand jury to see if he should be charged with the crime.
Well, I was
after he'd been given an award by the governor.
I was going to say, the grand jury ultimately did agree. I mean, there's no charges. Specifically, also, the prosecutor, Tim Rogers of Tarrant County District's Attorney Office, explained that, and I love this wording, Mr. Wilson shot his firearm to take out a threat that was endangering other lives. He did it responsibly, and he is absolutely justified in doing that under Texas law.
Well, then why did he waste taxpayer money and send it to the grand jury?
Because we live in interesting times.
But I mean, the point of all of that is, if you don't think that there's a chance that you're going to get handcuffed and detained and taken to the station and interrogated and kept for hours, if not days, at a minimum, like I said, this was potentially the cleanest, most clear-cut defensive shooting case I've ever seen. And while I don't know that Jack was ever detained, I mean, he was under threat of charges for what, almost a year?
Yeah.
Can you imagine living like that? That hanging over your head?
Yeah, not okay.
No. He's an interesting guy, too. Former NRA instructor. I believe he previously owned his own range. He was a member of the church security team. And I didn't know this until I was researching this today. He is currently running for a county commissioner seat in Hood County. And I was thinking about it, I'm like, I got to imagine, like, he's a shoo-in for that seat, right? Like,
now he is.
I mean,
Sure.
You kind of have to be. I hate to fall back on, you know, the Texas cliche, but, I mean, everybody came out right away with that shooting, and they were, governor, everybody else was right on board. You know, it helps that there was very clear-cut and definitive video footage. You know, unfortunately, it was live streamed out to everybody watching the church service. The Oh, and the one we have up next is.
Man, I never thought about that portion
Right?
of it. Can you imagine sitting at home watching that on what do they call it, Live Barn or whatever those streaming services
Right,
are for
right.
churches, and you're watching that? Wow, I never considered that. I mean,
Well,
I just assumed it was security footage, not streaming footage.
no, that was absolutely live streamed. If you
Yeah.
remember the New Zealand shooting at the God, I don't want to butcher it. I believe it was a mosque. I can't remember the name of it, but that also I was live streamed. But that was live streamed by the shooter. It seems to be. It makes sense, right? The rest of our lives are on film, on video.
Well, I mean, we see that in class. Assume you're being recorded.
Always. So, all right.
You know, there's a lot of takeaways from that shooting there that you can kind of break down into different sections. As one, that's pretty amazing as a whole. You know, mentally, you could break down how you would react in that scenario, or how you think you would react, and kind of play it out in your head what you would do, what you wouldn't do. You can practice the timing of that scenario in your, at home in the range. And then obviously in a crowd, the distance and the speed, this is a great learning tool. And I know Jim really kind of took this one to heart and, just kind of put himself against the benchmark and see where he landed. And I think that's great. And I think we as permit carry holders, citizens should do that kind of self-evaluation in comparison to a real world scenario. And obviously, like I said, you could break it down to individual components, kind of benchmark yourself against that. Obviously, you can never fully put yourself in the scenario itself as a fair comparison, but I love the fact that you can take a lot out of this one scenario. And luckily, it turned out in a better way than it could have. And I think people should focus on these kinds of scenarios more often as a citizen, and study these things and find out what they can do better, just like, Jim did, for instance. Jim ultimately ended up changing his carry piece because of it.
You had a lot of consternation. You went through a lot of firearms and a lot of practice a similar scenario.
And I know for a fact, as a person who carries 95% of the time, that deciding to change what you carry on a daily basis is a big decision.
Yeah. You said it's good thing that it turned out somewhat better. It's important to remember 2 people still died from gunshot wounds.
Obviously, this wasn't best case scenario. Best case would have been scenario stopping him before anything happened, any shots were fired.
I was just going to say, it was 2 seconds. I mean, 3 seconds maybe. And unfortunately, 2 people still died, and he took out that.
But as a reactionary force, I think this is best case scenario.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was trying to decide how much of what do I talk about is now versus how much what I talk about is when we get to the idea of how we individually train. But one of the things I took away from it is my best case scenario in that situation is probably at least one more good guy dies before I can get that shot off. And then I'm not convinced it would be a hit. I think the probability would be pretty darn good, 80, 90%. But I mean, fewer people died because Jack was there than if I had been, I think. And I don't think I'm that bad, but he was the best case scenario.
Yeah. And thankfully the grand jury did come to the right decision. I mean, that's kind of being there to protect other people. Whatever your motives for carrying, mine is my family. His was to protect his congregation. I mean, that's why you carry. I mean, you don't ever want to have to, but that's why he was part of the church security team. That's why he did the things he did.
Yeah, I mean, you could compare what he did to what we would do in the same situation too, from the standpoint of realistically, as far away as he was, the reaction might have been, it's time for me to leave. But he was part of the church security team. He had agreed to assume a little more personal risk on behalf of the congregation. So he didn't turn and run. He addressed the threat and thankfully managed to take care of it pretty darn quickly.
Cool. All right. So that's a fun, good, happy story. And now we get to talk about one that is weird. The McCloskeys. Mark and Patricia. Or you might have heard them referred to as Ken and Karen. I'm guilty of that. St. Louis couple.
I can't ever remember Mark and Patricia, but I can remember Ken and Karen. That's my problem.
Ken and Karen works. All right, so they were the St. Louis couple who defended their home with firearms after a mostly peaceful protest. Decided to break down their gate, trespass all over their property, and allegedly threaten them. They had been previously charged with some weapons violations. The wife took a lot of heat and the husband for very poor weapons handling, but, given the situation, given them their experience, I don't rag on them too much. This is another one we did.
Granted, it's not some of the best trigger control I've ever seen, right? But they didn't shoot anybody. At the end of the day,
you shouldn't be,
especially, is the most important. You know what I mean? In this scenario.
So I don't have an issue with the husband. I have an issue with the wife enunciating and making her point with the gun. That took it a little too far for me. But no, I don't fault them for being in that for taking the actions they took in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, if they could go back, I'm sure she would take some firearms training in the past if she could. Because my understanding was that was like the first time she'd ever picked up a gun. She did not know what she was doing, but she was scared for her life.
Apparently, they
going
got
back. She would probably be a little more capable.
They're getting some training. Local St. Louis, either range or company, is giving them some free training, which is sorely needed. So they
got caught in a situation that she apparently didn't think would happen, and she wasn't ready for it. So could she have reacted differently? Yeah, but as AJ says, she did manage to not pull the trigger.
Well, and there's some, and that's why we're talking this story. They've been charged with tampering with evidence now, specifically for that pistol that she was carrying. They now are saying that what they're being charged with is that they disabled it after the incident, before turning it into police custody. Which, if you remember a little while back, there was the reports that the DA had ordered it disassembled and reassembled in a working order. This pistol had been part of a court evidence for a previous case they had. So now they're trying to pin them with tampering with evidence, which I don't know how they're going to prove that, though.
How would they know it was working or not working?
Exactly.
Beforehand.
Well, they knew it wasn't working when it came into police custody, but how do you prove it? This whole story reeks.
It's a weird
Yeah,
one.
I mean,
if you're going after tampering with evidence, we're reaching for something over, what the issue was at face value.
there's an element though of like watching a fictional story here where you have to suspend disbelief, because this just is so far from logical and rational based on what we know. But yeah, they're apparently looking through the law books and finding anything they think they can charge them with and seeing if they can get it to stick.
Yeah, the whole story is beginning to get a little more interesting. Mark and Patricia were at the Republican National Convention, yet they're very liberal. They are very... they seem to be taking some of the attention, now they're handing out, autographed photos and stuff like that, so...
Everybody wants their 15 minutes.
Well,
Good or
they've got
bad.
money, but they may need to start saving for a defense fund here.
I feel like they know some people, probably. I don't know. It's a weird story. When it first came out, and the charges first came out, like I still think it's a bit of morality policing, appeasing the mob, and you just cannot. You can't cave to the mob. It's like blackmail. They just keep coming back for more. All right. Ammunition. I was joking when I wrote it up, but I wrote, do you really need that kidney? I had a buddy who sent a picture to me that I sent to you guys last week. 50 rounds of, I believe it was like American Eagle, just Full Metal Jacket.
Yep, it was American Eagle.
9mm, 124 grain, $35.99. That is 71 cents a round on 9mm.
Yeah, I mean that's 3.5 times what it was 6-8 months ago.
More than that.
AJ, we didn't.
People
hear
thought I
anything.
was crazy.
There we go. Okay.
We still
People
do.
thought I was crazy. No.
And we saw an exclamation, but we didn't hear
ready.
one.
I mean, I took a lot of crap for reloading 9mm, and I'm feeling pretty good about that decision now.
Absolutely. Yeah, you seem to be the one who foresaw the future.
No, I got a good deal on a reloader that came with a 9mm die set. I don't know.
Whatever works, man.
Some places are doing, 2 boxes per customer, 5 boxes per customer. I kind of want to scream at people and say stop buying 20, 30 boxes of ammo, or scream at them and say you should have been more prepared and had more than 1 box of freaking ammo a year ago.
All I'm saying is I'm glad I wouldn't use the word stockpile, because my amount of ammunition for personal use is not a stockpile.
California would disagree.
They don't count. But if I wasn't a person that kept a fair amount of ammunition on hand, and I wasn't a person that trained very often, we would get into the scenario now where I wanted to, and you would struggle right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is part of the reason why people buy so much, is they're like, well, I haven't touched my gun in 5 months, a year, 5 years, right? I should probably practice a little. God knows when I practice with a single gun, I mean, multiple boxes, no problem. I mean, I'm not practicing 20 rounds or 50 rounds. I mean, I'll bring a 250 brick for each weapon I bring, easily, And, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, it sucks now that it's $35 a box. You're going to be in for $100 for a couple of boxes. But, I mean, on the flip side, if you haven't touched your gun in a while, I mean, I have the luxury of not having to practice right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm confident in my skill. I don't need to practice right now. There's not everybody out there is that confident and has the ammunition to do that.
Right.
It sucks.
So, I mean, I transitioned to a new carry gun not long ago. I mean, I've bitched about it on this numerous times, about, like, the holsters and whatnot, but I shot 200 rounds, and that was, a month and a half ago, and that was before they was as expensive as it is now, and that hurt. 200 rounds hurt. I mean, I'm in a similar boat. I have my supply. I'm not in concern, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I primarily shoot 2 calibers, 22 and 9, and I had gotten a couple of deals on some relatively large orders of 22 a couple of years ago. So, my ratio of ammunition is much more weighted toward the 22. I'm not in danger of running out of 9, but I've changed what I practice. I'm shooting 80% 22 now and 20% 9mm when it maybe was, a third to a half 22 before, just to burn through what I have more evenly to make sure that I don't run out.
Yeah. I mean, it's out there. The ammunition's out there. You can get your hands on it. I'd love to say it's going to come back down, but I've been telling people that this is the new normal. This is what it is. Maybe, I don't know. I don't see it coming back down anytime soon.
Well, and I know part of the problem too is that a lot of new gun owners don't think they need to really have any ammunition on hand. It's been a while, but I took a call, I don't know, a year ago from someone who had taken their class with another one of our instructors, and she misunderstood what he had meant when she bought ammunition, and so she was asking about having bought a box of full metal jacket ammunition, and I said, no, you wanted hollow points for your carry ammunition. And she said, well, okay, well, I'll take the full metal jacket back. I'm like, no, you go to the range and you practice with those. You don't take them back. Returned ammunition. I mean, have you guys ever returned ammunition? But she didn't see any reason that she needed to have any ammunition on hand other than what was left over from the box that she needed to fill the gun to carry it. And I think that's common. It just doesn't dawn on people that you need to have some ammunition around so that you can go practice.
I was going to say, I have ammunition in calibers that I don't have guns for anymore. I got 22 Win Mag. I do not have a 22 Win Mag. I 38 Special. I mean, it's not where there's a lot of new gun owners or there's a lot of people who just think it's cool to, hey, not cool, but grab the gun, take my permit to carry, throw it up in the closet for, that one time I may need it because I'll be able to get it in time, right? Won't be an issue. I'll get it. That's a large part of the firearms population, firearms owners population, is people that they don't train, they don't stockpile, they don't plan for a rainy day. I think.
Yeah, it isn't that they're planning to fail, but they are failing to plan. Mm-hmm. And that does need to be part of your thought process, part of your action plan if you want to carry a gun, is you do need to build practice into it. And that's part of what we wanted to dedicate this show to, with some of the things that we do to practice.
All right. For just pure enjoyment, I hopped on AmmoSeek and typed in 9mm, and $50 of Wolf mil spec 115 grain FMJ with a lacquer, of course, because it's Wolf.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking low end ammunition.
Yeah, 51.9 cents a round for Wolf ammo.
So $25 a box, $26 a box for the lowest quality ammunition I have seen on a range.
Yeah, that's
when you used to be able to buy mid-grade stuff for about 20 cents a round if you just looked a little bit carefully. I mean, you couldn't go to Gander Mountain and get it for that price, but
I feel like I was getting it for 15 cents a round before, because I priced out what I could reload per round at versus what I was purchasing at. And if you're buying in bulk, you're getting 15, 17 cents a round.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about going to the store and buying a box.
Yeah.
So definitely with some effort. I'm sure you came in well below that, but
Well, yeah, I had to justify reloading 9mm. So, man, I wonder what the ranges are charging for ammo right now to non-members. That's got to be outrageous.
Well, and that's one of the problems too. Is you go to a range, and you can see that business is down. I was at Maple Grove on Saturday, and at noon, 1 o'clock, we darn near, Jason and I were there working through students, and we darn near had the range to ourselves. And I think part of the problem is people can't come and practice because they don't have ammunition, or they can't afford that on top of the range fees. And that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
You don't need any of these ranges to fold.
The other thing I've been seeing, I just noticed a comment, it's FMJ is for range only, 100% FMJ is practice, full metal jacket. I've seen a lot of people showing up, and the only thing they have is the overpriced hollow points they got, you know, and that's all they have to shoot. And I'm just like,
Right now, if I'm hurting, I'm gonna carry FMJs and I'm gonna range shoot my hollow points. I'm gonna do what I got. I'm gonna do me.
yeah,
Something in that gun is better than nothing in that gun. You know what I mean?
100%. If you don't have to though, don't waste your hollow points.
Agreed.
That's kind of the point I'm getting at is, if you got any other option, don't waste those hollow points.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of a joke it was, but I saw somebody post a picture of a box of 50 of Federal HSTs. I don't know about you guys, but that's what I carry is Federal HST. That's, I think, probably, one of the very most common carried brands and makes of ammunition. And it had been marked to $119.99.
Oh my god.
So it was
Right in the feels.
$240 a round.
Ugh.
It's kind of that idea of that joke about I got robbed and I filled the guy with a magazine full of bullets and realized it would have been cheaper to just hand over the wallet.
Right? I told you. You don't need that kidney, Jim. It's fine. Just it's okay. All right, now you got me. So I carry Spear Gold Dot. And
If I'm carrying the LCP2, I carry gold dots in 380.
yeah.
That's good ammunition as well.
All right, I'm looking.
Those would be
here.
my two top choices: HSTs and gold dot.
Yeah, I'm not finding anything actually available. So since it's all back order or out of stock, prices haven't been updated because I promise you it's more than 80 cents a round. Man, that's just.
I want to make a comment. There was a comment on the Facebook about rotating your carry ammo, and one of the ladies on here, she mentioned that she rotates hers every 3 months, and I fully encourage this practice. 3 months might be a little excessive, especially right now with ammo prices and limited availability. But definitely, I mean, I'm on the every year kind of rotation. Some people are every 6 months. Some people are, everybody's different. But we didn't talk about that. I thought I'd point it out because it was a very good comment about rotating your carry ammo on a regular basis.
So
When you say rotate, you're not talking about taking it out and replacing it with something else. You're talking about shooting.
I'm talking about expelling what you have and replacing it with new stuff.
Yeah, 'cause what I do is whatever gun goes to the range with me, those get fired, and then I reload with fresh stuff there. Yeah, what people sometimes don't take into account is carrying a gun is about the worst thing you can do for it from the standpoint of keeping it clean.
Right.
So, yeah, you carry a gun for a couple of months and the lint and dirt and crap that could be in there around your ammunition, yeah, you want to make sure that stuff does stay in good shape.
So, I pocket carry my LCP2 a lot, and I have it sitting here next to me. So I just pulled the rounds out of the magazine because I run into an issue where I get a lot of bullet setback into the casing with the LCP2. So I absolutely use the LCP ammo, carry ammo far more frequently because I have a setback issue with this firearm. I don't know exactly what it is about this gun, but I don't have that same setback in like my SIG P365. So I use the carry ammo more frequently in the LCP than I do like the SIG. That's going to sit there for 6-7 months.
Yeah, you want to explain what setback is and what the process is that you're going through to get it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Want to.
So I practice with my guns, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit here. I practice dry fire. I practice loading a lot. And so I'm unloading my magazine or my firearm frequently so that I can practice with snap caps or just dry fire. And so what'll happen is the bullets... What'll happen is the actual jacketed hollow point will start to sit lower in the case. And that can cause the round to under or overperform. So what I'll do is I'll take them, I always carry the same ones. I'll set them side by side, and in fact this one right here I can see, and you won't be able to see this through my camera. I can actually see it's about 3 or 4 millimeters. This one is shorter, right? Overall length on this one is shorter than this one. So the bullet has just set down into the casing. And that just comes from unloading, loading, carrying.
Yeah, it's a function of chambering the rounds. That's where it happens. And it's one of those things where if you are somebody who frequently takes the round out of the chamber and then puts a round back in, investing in an inexpensive micrometer isn't necessarily a bad idea, because when you start to see that you've lost a millimeter or two, it's worth thinking about just firing that one and moving on and not leaving it in the gun anymore, because they can perform differently and not in a good way if you get enough setback there. So when you start to see that there's some setback, that one kind of needs to be retired from carry duty.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's funny you say that. I mean, yeah, I have my micrometer sitting right here. It's the other thing is you can see.
I'm going to make a comment, not to pick on Shane, because I have no idea the background of this ammunition. It is also more likely to happen on shells that are reused and reloaded.
Factory round.
Again,
yeah.
I'm judging because I know nothing about what you have. I'm just saying, in general, it is more likely for reused casings to be.
Yeah, because a reused casing is going to tend to have expanded a bit. Right. But yeah, Shane and I are definitely in the same boat where reloading is okay for practice, but we will only carry factory-loaded defensive rounds.
100%. I'm confident in my reloading ability, and I'm confident in my firearms ability to handle any issues I may have in that reloading ability, but I'm not going to put my life on the line with my reloaded rounds. So, it's interesting, I think we talked a while back, just another thing to touch, as I'm looking at these, the rounds do tarnish, as Jim was saying. Carrying it's a horrible environment for your gun and for the rounds. It's picking up sweat and moisture and temperature changes, so it's condensating. Your rounds will tarnish over time. That's not too much of a concern, but that's also why a lot of your carry ammo is nickel-plated brass, and it's just to help prevent corrosion and drag coefficiency. It makes the metal's a little more smooth on the loading into the chamber up the feed ramp. So.
Yeah, and that's just part of why it's more expensive. The tolerances in the factory are a little tighter to make sure that it's more likely to go bang instead of click, because it has to. So, you can look at your defensive ammunition and say, geez, I hate to pay the difference in price, but there's a good reason for that difference in price.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not that the prices right now are reasonable, but, in general speak.
They are what they are. We see this normally around election times. We had some things that preempted election this year, right? Yeah, I'm just doing a quick research. There was another comment talking about the new USCCA grip. Have you guys heard of a new grip being trained on by USCCA, or are we still talking about thumb on thumb forward?
This is news to me.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of something like this.
Yeah,
While you guys were talking, I saw that and I tried Googling it quick, and I don't know.
Same thing.
See what she's talking about. Maybe Amy can send this to us and we can do a little research.
Absolutely.
Yeah, by all means, send us a link or something like that so we can take a look.
Yeah, I think I found a quick article.
The short answer is no. None of us are.
Correct. I suspect it's still probably just the thumb over thumb, thumbs forward along the slide, but hopefully, she'll shoot us a link and we can look into it. All right.
Yeah, I mean, grip wasn't one of those things we had planned to talk about, but yeah, I mean, one of the things that I tell students is make sure that you don't have a grip that's so complicated that you're strong hand, support hand, and then you're over here fiddling for, which thumb. You want to be able to grab that gun up, support hand, and fire. If big bad guy is coming at you, wasting time fiddling with a complicated grip is no bueno.
I agree, and grip is important. I think it becomes less important over time, though.
Well, I think it's just a case of after a while you start developing a good grip, and then I don't like the term muscle memory because muscles don't have memory, neuromuscular memory, where you just know what that feels like, and so that's naturally what you do. It's just like how we've trained ourselves not to put the finger on the trigger when we pick it up. We've developed that pathway so that that's how we do it, and so we don't have to think anymore about picking it up. You just pick it up and the finger's on the frame. That's just the way we do it. So we just go for that grip every time because, geez, how many tens, if not hundreds of thousands of times have we done it?
All right, so
That's why I'm a big one, for that whole idea of practice makes perfect is not a good statement. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you practice wrong, you will perform wrong. So you have to make sure your practice is consistent with how you want to perform.
All right, so she's saying it is a grip that has the left index finger equal with the right, but on the frame. We'll look into it. I've not heard that. It seems foreign to me. Just trying to work it out here, but yeah, we'll look into it. And
I mean, at face value, if it's as simple as that, I don't see the benefit.
Right?
Yeah, we're gonna definitely have to read something about, why is that?
Now, what's the benefit?
Why is that a good idea? What's the benefit here?
We'll look into it, and we'll definitely.
We'll cover it next show.
That's what I was gonna say. You got to come back in 2 weeks to figure out what we think of it. But I mean, USCCA is not exactly a slouch organization, so. I mean, if it's something that they are out there proffering, I suspect they have a good reason behind it.
Yeah, you tell me James Yeager came up with it. I'm like, USCCA? I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to need to have to check that out.
Jim, you sent me and AJ a James Yeager video, and I tried to watch it, and I couldn't get to the part that you wanted me to watch. I got tired of getting yelled at through the video.
Yeah, he's unique.
Yeah.
And not necessarily in a good way. But he does have a place, but I don't think it's in the civilian training market like where we are.
No.
I think he should be sticking to training law enforcement personnel. That's his background, that's what he knows.
Didn't he get booted off YouTube
he did.
Twice and then permanently?
At least once.
I'm pretty sure it was once, and I think they brought him back.
We're working on it too.
He's got value-added stuff, but they had a training program he was running at his place where his instructors were downrange, and students were putting targets on fire on targets right next to the instructors, and it just kind of goes against what we teach in the civilian market. It's not that might be it kind of feels like a Russian training tactic. But yeah.
Well, I mean, let's go extreme. You watch a SWAT team train or the Navy SEALs train to take out a building, and I mean, they are putting rounds downrange while their personnel are downrange.
100%.
Because they have orchestrated this carefully enough to know that they're assigned certain areas, and that you can only shoot in your area because somebody else is going to be adjacent to that area. But I mean, that is not civilian defensive shooting.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Just think about the liability on that one. I should laugh.
I really don't want to.
There's another comment. Practice makes permanent. I would say practice makes performance.
Yeah, I like practice makes performance just because permanent makes it sound like you can't change. But I certainly understand the statement because, practice doesn't make perfect, but practice can definitely make what you do without thinking, the same thing, and that can potentially be wrong.
So, practice. Jim, what are you
While
doing?
we were sitting here, good news, guys.
Yeah?
While we were sitting here, being a gun guy, I kind of got stuff all over, and I just found half a box of 9mm. So if anybody's got $20 and they want it,
Whoa.
Give 'em a round.
Whoa. Look, it's supply and demand. I think we're a little higher than 20.
30?
Yeah, I'd start at 30.
$30. All right, I got half a box. I am confident I bought it this year. Didn't know it was there.
What are we doing on 380? I got a full 50.
Ooh. Anyways, I feel like I just won pull tabs or something. Like, hey, that's free money right there.
I'm not gonna lie. I did a rough count of all of my 9mm after I sent you guys that picture, just to see how much it was worth.
What kind of value you're holding on to?
I did. And I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. It was a good number.
Hey, you got to call your homeowner's insurance company and say, the value of my possessions has gone up significantly here. We need to rethink my policy.
I mean, I don't want to get into how much ammo I have, but it significantly moved the asset number. Okay, so we're saying practice makes performance, or practice makes permanent. Jim, what are you doing to practice right now, aside from shooting as much 22 as goes unnoticed?
Well, one of the things that I was going to say is just that whole idea of you can come up with your own practice program, your own practice routine, but just keep in mind what is the goal that you have for your practice, and is what you're doing consistent with it. A lot of times we'll get that question on the range from a student, should I have both eyes open, or is it okay to close one eye? And again, you've got to look at, what is it you're trying to do? Because if you're watching a long distance competitive shooter in any kind of sanctioned event, they've probably got safety glasses where one lens is opaque so that they can completely ignore that information, because it is easier to shoot with only your dominant eye open. But if bad guy is over here coming at you and you got this eye closed, well, you've got a problem. So again, when you're practicing, what is it that you're trying to practice for? Well, if you're practicing for defensive shooting, you want to have both eyes open so that you can assess what's going on around you to the greatest degree and make sure that you don't miss a threat. So that's the first thing I try to reinforce, is just make sure that you understand how it is you want this practice to help you, and make sure that it's consistent with it. But I think the biggest thing that I was kind of looking for in what we were talking about tonight is, we have that slide in the PowerPoint where we talk about, just a small version of some of those other things that you need to take into account. Low light techniques, flashlight techniques, one-hand shooting in case one of your arms is injured, be it your strong side or your weak side. Winter clothing, gloves, can you shoot with gloves on, things like that, drawing from the holster. I mean, you can't do that kind of stuff at the range, at least not at most ranges.
No.
So you've got to come up with some sort of plan for how to augment that. Shane, you've got a plan for how you practice your draw and your firing technique. I don't do that as much, but I'm a big one for dry firing in the living room where I've got the gun and I'm marking targets on TV, because I think there's some merit in trying to track a moving target like that. And then again, that idea of dry firing where the gun stays completely silent. But at the range, one of the things that I started doing after that White Settlement Church shooting was I looked at the fact that Jack Wilson had to take a headshot at 50 feet through a crowd. And I thought, okay, realistically, I should never have to shoot. But if I do, the odds are it's going to be a bigger target and a closer distance than that. But let's call this the worst case scenario, and can I do it? So I set the target down at 60 feet, and I took the gun that I was carrying, and then I happened to have the same gun that Jack Wilson uses, only just in a different caliber. He has a .357 SIG. I have it in 9mm. But I was just using the two guns just as a comparison. And it was literally, because you can't draw from a holster, it was just down from the table, up, get a sight picture, and then fire as quickly as I could. And each magazine held 15 rounds, so it was 15 shots. And with the gun that I'd been carrying, I hit the target twice. This is just a 8-inch circle on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So it's not a huge target, but I mean, it was a headshot at 50 feet, right? With the same gun that Jack uses, I made the shot 9 of 15 times. So, AJ talks about changing the gun that you carry being a tough decision. It sure didn't seem like a tough decision after that. If I can make that shot 2 of 15 times with one gun and 9 of 15 times with the other gun, I have to change.
Yeah.
That
might be an easy decision when you have another gun to fall
Yeah,
back on.
it's not a hard. It's not an easy thing to do because there's a lot of changes in your practice that have to go along with it. But it was an easy decision to make that I have to switch. I owe it to society to carry the gun that I'm most accurate using, and it just surprised me because that's a double action, single action gun, and I fired every one of those 15 shots double action. The other was a striker fired gun. They're the same size, the same barrel length, the same magazine capacity. I mean, they're basically the same gun, just one's all steel and double action, single action. The other one's a polymer, striker fired. So I just assumed that the polymer gun would have a little bit of an advantage because the trigger pull would be smoother and shorter. No, and with such a dramatic distance, just such a dramatic difference. Well, I have to change. I have to. There's no way I can continue doing what I'm doing, knowing what I now know.
Understandable. I am not at. I'm still working on. I knew what my carry gun, what I wanted. Right. I'm still working on my draw. I'm still working on my trigger pull. That 365 shoots different. The trigger is different than the shield I carried for 3 years previously. My practice, I do a similar thing when it's just me at home or if I'm just in the office here and I got the TV on back there. I'll dry fire practice. I'll track targets. The other thing I like to do is to go into the garage. I took one of our targets. I taped it up on the garage door. I stand at the back of the garage, and I do my draw. And I have a 3-step draw that I work through as frequently as I can. I try to do that 50-ish times a week. I should maybe be doing it a little more, or at least instead of doing it all one night, I should maybe spread that out to a few different nights. But it's all dry fire practice. I do a little bit of malfunction clearing, mag changes, but right now it's all just still learning the draw on that P365. I've discovered I have a little bit different, a little bit more difficulty how I draw it out from appendix than I do.
There's less handle to grab. I don't have any problem understanding that it would be different and harder.
And the holster I got, it sits a little lower. I had a black Rhino holster for my shield. This one's a tier 1. I wanted to try something different. That was highly recommended. It took me a while to get comfortable with that tier 1. I think I told you guys I hated it. But it's what I have, and it costs a lot of money. But I've gotten used to it. I've gotten comfortable. I'm at a point where I am wearing it, all day, and it's not an issue. But it's just practice. It's before I was shooting a lot more. I'm not shooting now, much to AJ's point. I don't need to shoot. I'd like to shoot, but I don't need to.
You can work on the other things that go into carrying rather than target practice, right? Because although it is a diminishable skill, you and I probably have more time in it than the average citizen does. Mm-hmm. We have the luxury of not having to do that right now.
Yeah. Still, I'd like to be shooting. Have you guys ever heard of laser hit training?
I've heard mixed reviews.
Yeah, I'm interested. I saw a good video on Reddit the weekend. I'm interested in it. I've also heard a lot of people are doing airsoft right now as an alternative. You can get some higher quality airsoft guns than maybe you could previously 5, 10, 15 years ago. So some people have resorted to doing that because it still fits your same holster. It at least has a similar trigger pull I don't know if that's value added from a carry standpoint.
I would say in this scenario, I would not use it as a direct replacement for shooting practice, obviously.
Correct.
For a myriad of reasons. But those other things, drawing from holster, carrying in different positions, I mean, there's other things you can do with that clone, dummy, airsoft, whatever you want, whatever the option is.
They're cheaper than CERT guns, too.
Right. I mean,
No, there's no getting around it. You can't completely replace the feeling and the noise and the concussion that goes along with firing your hollow point ammunition, especially if you're firing something like a plus P. But, you can't do that in the garage. You can't do that in the backyard. You can't do that in the basement. So when you can't make it to the range, you've got to find the next best thing.
Jim, you have the wrong attitude. You can do anything once. I just wouldn't recommend it. It's kind of like that you can do anything on your last day at work.
Only 2 weeks left.
Oh. Alright, guys. We got an hour in. I know. It went quick tonight. It went real well.
Yeah, we got started on ammo, and that conversation took a lot longer than I thought we would. So we can certainly talk about some more details of practice next time.
Absolutely. I might end up. I don't know. I want to get to a point. I'm going to share it. I've my 3D printed frame. It's got rails in it now. I'm slowly buying parts and I'm slowly building a Glock. But I just wanted to show it off once. No, I think we should call it a show, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. Thanks everybody for joining. Thanks for the comments. As always, we'll have this up on our YouTube page tomorrow, and look for a podcast version soon. All right. Thanks everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Take care.